Neuroscience proves everything that you wants you even more, providing you activate these 3 specific neurological mechanisms in your brain. And I'm going to show you how. Hi, I'm Charlotte, a neuroscientist, helping you become the greatest story you've ever told by making your brain your best friend. Mechanism 1. Once you clearly define a dream or a goal, your brain is already hunting for it. And I mean absolutely relentlessly. So most people don't realize this, but there's a tiny cluster of incredibly powerful neurons that sit at the base of your brainstem called the Reticular Activating System. And its entire job is to decide which opportunities you notice and which ones you are completely blind to. Really, because every single second your nervous system is being flooded with around 11 million pieces of information. Opportunities, patterns, faces, ideas, even your own internal thoughts. So to keep you sane, your conscious mind only processes around 50 pieces a second. Absolutely nothing. Which means your brain is literally filtering reality for you. But how does it decide what to let through, right? Because that changes everything that you see and experience based on what it believes is important to you. And how does the brain decide what's important to you? Based on what you repeatedly think about, what you emotionally attach meaning to, and what carries the strongest emotional charge. Which means you are not experiencing reality as it is. You are experiencing reality through the filter that your brain expects to see. Big difference. If your brain expects opportunity, then you'll become more likely to notice it. But if your brain expects rejection, then you'll become more likely to notice that instead. And this is where it gets fascinating. So the moment you get emotionally attached to a dream or a goal, something genuinely lights you up, your brain starts tagging anything related to it as significant. And once something is significant to the brain, it starts hunting for it everywhere, literally everywhere. In fact, let me prove it to you. In the image I'm about to show you, I'm going to give you roughly 3 seconds to find at least 3 yellow objects. Okay, ready? Go. Got them? Okay, now without going back to the image, name one object that was red. Most people can't. Because the moment I told your brain to look for yellow, it immediately started filtering everything else out. Not because those things didn't exist, but because your brain decided they weren't relevant to you. That is how your reticular activating system works in real life. It filters your entire reality based on what your brain believes matters. But here's the issue. Most of us have unknowingly trained this mechanism to work against us, not for us. So if you constantly focus on failure, on rejection, embarrassment, all the things that could go wrong, your brain starts tagging those things as important instead. The very opposite of what you want, but that's because that's where your focus is. And so instead, your brain started scanning reality for literal evidence to prove all of those thoughts to be true, even if they're objectively not. If you believe people don't like you, your RAS will delete every single sign that they do. If you believe money is hard to make, you will unconsciously filter out every simpler path to it. If you believe life isn't giving you a break, you will find even more obstacles. Because the brain operates on this neural process called congruence. It is always trying to align your inner world with the reality of your outer world, and it absolutely hates the tension when those two things don't match. Which means you are never discovering opportunities that you didn't already have access to right now. Your brain simply changed the filter to be able to allow you to connect with them, to see them. Do you see how much pressure that takes off you? It's not and was never about exhausting yourself, chasing this far off thing in the distant future. It's also not the universe or God or some kind of higher power, whatever you believe in, picking favourites. It's just biology. It's selective attention, which is brilliant news, best news of the century, because guess who controls it? You do. And if we control something, we can completely change our lives. But this is where the neuroscience becomes even more fascinating, and this is point number 2. Once the brain has changed its filter and locks onto the goal, it doesn't just change what you notice, it changes your entire self-concept, what you do and how you think about yourself. So there is a recent neuroscience study around neural coupling and motor system priming, and it shows that the brain actually changes behavior around the future that it now believes is both important and possible. What this means is when you feel good about a goal, you begin acting differently. It's why you might speak with more confidence. It's why you might take actions and risks that you would have totally avoided before. It's why you might also feel drawn to places, people, opportunities before they even logically make sense. Because biologically, and this is absolutely amazing, your brain has already started mapping out the very neural pathways for that future dream version of you to exist. They're already starting to form. It is acting as that future you before you've even had the physical results, the tangible results. Crazy. So cool. But there is an even more powerful mechanism in human neuroscience to making your dreams real. And this is point number 3, final point. Your brain cannot fully tell the difference between a vividly imagined future and a real one. In neuroscience, we call this functional equivalence. When you deeply imagine a future version of you, you are not just daydreaming. It is not a waste of time. It is not a waste of energy. Because MRI scans, these really cool, stunning live scans of the brain, show us that you are activating the exact same neural circuits as if you were actually living that moment right now, as if you were actually doing the thing. Look at these scans. See how similar the parts of the brain are that are being activated? This is imagining doing something versus actually doing it. Very, very little difference. And that is why top athletes use this technique. Neurosurgeons use it, so do musicians. And if you've ever thought that your imagination couldn't actually change your life, you're about to be proved wrong. There was a landmark study by Ohio University where researchers split participants into 2 groups. One group was told to vividly imagine exercise. The other group did nothing. The results? Mind-blowing. The participants who only visualized lifting weights saw a 13% increase in muscle strength. They didn't actually do the weightlifting. They did nothing other than visualize. Their bodies were physically changing from imagination alone because their motor neurons in their motor cortex were firing as if they were actually at the gym, leading to real, measurable physiological growth. Crazy. Of course, it doesn't replace any of the real kind of benefits of doing actual exercise, but here's the key. When you repeatedly see everything that you want, the life, the success, the relationship, the dream version of you, you are creating literal mental blueprints that your nervous system begins treating as familiar. And that is insanely powerful, beyond powerful, because the brain loves familiarity. It loves patterns. It loves predictability. It is always trying to connect the dots of your life into something known and safe. And here's the thing, if your dream life feels alien, your brain actually sabotages you to go back to the struggle it recognizes, even if it's harmful to you. So you go back to being stressed, you go back to being anxious, back to being worried. Your brain would rather keep you in a life it understands than risk you stepping into one it cannot predict. But with daydreaming, instead of your dream life feeling distant, intimidating, or unrealistic, it starts feeling possible. It starts feeling safe. Then it becomes believable. And eventually, dare I say it, normal. The key is actually making your success feel super boring to the nervous system. Because once the brain accepts something as normal, your baseline behavior starts changing around it. You suddenly want to wake up earlier and actually want to work on that project. You feel more driven to take care of your body. You naturally feel more content and fulfilled. That's why major transformations often feel effortless after a certain point, because eventually your nervous system stops fighting your future. And that is it for today's deep dive. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and definitely come hang out with me on Instagram and TikTok at NeuroCharlotte, where I'll be sharing even more neuroscience goodness. And I shall see you in the next one.